Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. All protocols observed. On behalf of the Embassy of Somalia to Kenya, I am pleased to have been invited in this first annual conference organized by the East African Institute for Peace and Governance in collaboration with the University of Nairobi. I would like to start my short remarks to thank the Executive Director of East African Institute, Mr. Anwar Abdel Fattah Bashir, whose energy and time has been instrumental to make the conference possible. This, with a list of diverse experts, invitees, I'm sure the next 2 days will be enriching experience for all. Many thanks to University of Nairobi for its partnership. Embassies, politicians, experts, civil servants, and all attendees are making this event successful. The emergence of many Somali-led think tanks with diverse and distinct purpose, which East African Institute is one, is a self-evident that we are moving to the right direction. Everything has a starting point, as think tanks also did start at one time in history. The first and oldest think tank is today 193 years old. It is the Royal United Service Institute of Defense and Security Studies, founded by 1831 by Duke of Wellington, and it is still operational and active. Think tanks are research institutes that seek to play a key role in making and influencing global and regional and national policy. Whilst each think tank serves a specific purpose, they all share common vision to improve their respective sectors, as well as being source of new ideas and research. Securing sustainable peace in the Horn of Africa is not an easy topic to discuss or cover in 2 days, and I am sure it will be a real challenge to panelists and moderates to cover these topics and manage with the limited time available in the next 2 days. Please be patient and help them to run the discussion smoothly and sufficiently. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for your participation, and I am sure your discussions and contributions in the next 2 days will be both critical and constructive for the region and beyond. With that, the conference is open. Thank you all. God bless you.
Good morning. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة بلساني يفقه قولي. My name is Anwar Abdel Fattah Bashir. I am the executive director of this institute, which hosted this conference along with the University of Nairobi. Thank you for attending the conference hosted by the East African Institute for Peace and Governance and co-hosted by the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies at the University of Nairobi. Let me remind, I can see my Professor Dr. Sabala, who is also the supervisor of my PhD thesis. So good to have you here. I want to thank also Professor Patrick Maluki, chair of the department, for the efforts he made to take this event a reality. Second, I want to thank my team at the East African Institute for Peace for their tireless effort from the very beginning up until now. The conference is entirely intellectual in nature and unrelated to politics. Over 75 people from the US, Europe, Asia, Africa have converged on this location for the conference. Over the course of the next 2 days, approximately 20 research papers and pertinent speeches related to the conference theme, Securing Sustainable Peace in the Horn of Africa, will be presented. Once again, thank you, and don't hesitate to approach our staff for help if you need it during the conference days. Thank you so much. Honestly.
Bismillah. Subax wanaagsan. Af Soomaaligan caadi waa soo. Excellencies, honorable guests, distinguished participants, panelists, all protocols observed. It's a great honor and privilege to be here with you this morning. And let me also thank Abdel Fattah and the Institute, East Africa Institute, in collaboration with the University of Nairobi. And let me congratulate them and their team for this inaugural conference. It takes a lot of courage, dedication, and commitment to bring together such a diverse and expertise and different stakeholders together. In today's world, as you all aware, the international global order is in disarray. I'm currently the chairperson of Lomé Peace and Security Forum, based in Togo. It is a multilateral forum that emphasizes on dialogue, mediation, conflict resolution, talking to difficult people, discussing difficult issues, including discourses that challenge the status quo. So this is partly contributes to that discussion and dialogue. So from the outset, let me again commend both the East African Institute and the University of Nairobi in their efforts to contribute in that peaceful discussion in Africa. It's through this type of dialogues and platforms that we as Africans can share experiences and learn lessons from each other and explore difficult issues that inform policy and leaders in addressing difficult issues that affect our development and peace and security. I think siyaasiyiinta waxay jecel yihiin inay iska hadlaan. Marka the idea today is not, I think Abdel Fattah mentioned, it's not about politics, but it's really about politics. Yeah? Because development and security are politics. And some of the issues we are facing in peace and security and development, we need to think differently. How do we think differently? I think first we must understand our history, at least the recent history. That starts the colonial and post-colonial period. And the way we are entangled with that period, including how our people and leaders and communities think. For example, there are 4 geographies, at least 4 geographies in the mind of every African you see. First is the pre-colonial identity. You are Somali, you are Oromo, you are Fulani, you are Bagaris, Bakara, the RSF supporters, for example, Fulani. And then the second is the line on the sand, the so-called the fixed borders of Africa that formed the country. So you have Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Djibouti, but you still have Somalis in all those countries. And then there is socio-cultural transcendence of those communities. Mandera and Beled How are there. People, they don't need translations and identities. They can move around. So for us to reflect on this is also the what is called the shared humiliation, trauma, suffering through colonialism and post-colonialism interventions and structures. Our role today here and in the next few days is to observe, analyze, discuss, and accompany and support policies and interventions that are guided by the respect, especially in the spirit of collaboration, partnership, and understanding. We can only understand these changes if we are in the driver's seat, not as passengers of these global upheavals that are happening. The Horn, especially the Horn of Africa, today stands at crossroads. Multiple crises have been created that affect peace, security, and development. We all know that there are many countries affected by humanitarian crisis, internal struggle, geopolitical tensions. Whatever problem you seek to address, for example, if it's health, there is complex interplay of factors. It's not necessarily about health sometimes, because it could be the fundamental problem could be water problem. So unless we study how this interplay of factors affect each other, we cannot address the main problem. The reason why I'm mentioning is that most of the donors and governments design projects without consulting the beneficiaries, those who are supposed to get benefits from the projects. So what we need is to understand the local context in a way that truly makes difference. This means recognizing the factors that are concurrently can create or support the effectiveness of the policy or the projects. I think it's also the buzzwords nowadays is bottom-up approach, community-led projects, stuff like that. It's very good to understand the local context and to be truly integrated in the policy when it's being in the designing process, not in the implementation process. There is also a discussion of how development and security interventions are locally led or owned. But to achieve that, I'm mentioning all this because I've seen your various different panel discussions, and I'm here just to provoke you into discussing those issues in a deeper way. Policies and projects that are designed and implemented with limited local contributions.
For your significant contribution.
Yes.
I think you have taken a lot of time.
Thank you.
We will now wish to move to our next speaker. You have 1 minute.
Okay.
Finalize.
Thank you. Thank you. Those without inputs, local inputs, and ownership are not sustainable. Thank you very much for the reminder. Thank you for all. And I wish you a successful 2-day discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Adam Auhirsi. I'm the director of a public policy and action think tank, a foresight for practical solutions. And I have done few things here and there in the government structures of Somalia, a regional level, in state level, federal member state level, and the federal level. And back in time, I was in the international systems that have to do with Somalia and globally at times. I am tasked to look at the nexus between climate crisis in Somalia and the security implications that new phenomena has on the region and the globe. We will start with climate crisis in Somalia. As everybody knows, Somalia is one of the most severe, is impacted by the most severe climate change crisis. And the designation have been proven in light of prevailing neighborhood instability. There can be other countries that have a climate change crisis, but Somalia is unique in terms of climate change crisis coupled with weak institutions while they're trying their best. A worst drought in over 4 decades with multiple consecutive failed seasons and highest flash floods and downpour of rains since 1997 in 90 days. That means we had people dying for hunger and dehydration in parts of Somalia, mostly southern parts of Somalia, in, say, June in 2022. Then in September, November, we were dealing with the highest floods that engulfed Somalia since the El Nino of 1997. There was a family, a particular family with a name in household known to many people, that one of the kids died of dehydration, and 2 weeks later, floods came and another kid died for it. So within 90 days, having the most severe drought to having the downpour of flash floods and rains. Significant displacement due to drought on the one hand and floods on the other. SODMA estimates that 800,000 people has been affected. What is the direct impact on Somali people? Food security is one. Over 7.1 million Somalis, almost 50,000 of the population, facing food insecurity at a crisis level or worse. So while we vacillate between droughts, lack of water, dehydration, and people dying of hunger, it is replaced by heavy rains and floods and rising river levels that we all know broke all the bridges in the south. 50% of the people are always affected. And loss of livestock is there, failed crops leading to famine, projections in big chunks of southern Somalia. And not only people lose lives, they lose their livelihoods. People get displaced from villages that have been the food basket of the Somali Peninsula. The Somali onion was sold as far as Dubai, the Somali cash crops. Sesame, as we speak, grown in southern Somalia as the biggest market in the Middle East. So not only people in those villages are losing lives and children and way of life, but the whole country is losing a food source. What we call in Italian tradua fuma, between the two rivers, there is where the biggest bulk of the Somali food has been produced. So we're losing not only lives, but also a way of lives in that area. And water scarcity, prolonged water shortages escalating into conflicts over resources. As we know, clan conflicts have been fertile grounds for terrorism, anarchy, and tahrib. I'm sure you know what tahrib is. Tahrib is trekking. When a kid, a youth is hopeless in Somalia, as we have seen in the past. I saw a clip. I tried to make into here, but I was old school. I couldn't find it, but I'll tell you the story. Somebody is saying in a protest in Mogadishu that we are Bajaj that is tuk-tuk drivers, and we tried our best to obey the law. We were overtaxed. The only way open for us is to make tahrib, that is trekking, what I call suicidal trek migration, like go wherever is possible. So it causes it. Tahrib is part of, it impacts, a part of the impacts on the Somali people. What is the security implications for Somalia out of the climate crisis nexus? Conflict escalation is one of them. Climate change exacerbates existing conflicts, particularly over resources like water and pasture. Somalis historically, they fought over wells and grazing lands. We didn't connect it to climate change back in time because droughts happen once every 10 years. That's why we had droughts named in the past. Hara Maune, Gari Garisar, and you name it, because they happened every 10 years. Now, it's like a neighbor who visits you every day, because droughts are happening every other year. And in between them, there are floods. So, Al-Shabaab, also an Islamic State, which Abdul Saeed would know more about this security and how those things happen, but emerging in Somalia, especially in the north part. We always talk about Al-Shabaab, but the Islamic State is a new kid on the ground. We will hear about it more, and hopefully we will tackle them. But there is this kid called Islamic State, exploiting climate-induced instability to gain control in ungoverned regions in two ways. Lure the youth that have lost hope through climate change, and also gain grounds. When displacements happen, the government loses interest in the villages, which people have fled. Nobody's paying tax, nobody is doing anything. Al-Shabaab fills in, set their own administration and brand. So climate change is helping them expand into areas. That's one way. The other way is, they say, empty hands are devil's workshop. You have a kid, 13, 14 years old. He lost everything. No farm, no school, no playmates, nobody. They are more likely to join in just test waters and Al-Shabaab and piracy and all of these other criminal elements than a kid who has everything set for them. who have their school, who have their playmates, who have their, all those expectations a kid have. So that's another way it helps those elements. Displacement and migration, large-scale, irreversible within Somali displacements feed into transnational migration. So you have a village, the village moves to another larger village, that one moves into the next city, that city moves into the capital city. The only way open for them is immigration, either track and fall prey to McGuffey, or go through the sea, like that's suicidal. So it feeds into transnational migration, and it also increases the risk of conflict over resources in host communities. The communities that were already struggling, you have another communities, there is no government resources that can, parcel up the resources that are available, and sure, there is a conflict. Radicalization among the displaced youth due to lack of opportunities and hope. I talked about the boy. Regional security impact, Horn of Africa, stability, climate-induced instability in Somalia spills over neighboring countries, of course, throwing a wrench in an already wobbly regional peace and security. Somalis in Somalia only border other Somalis. In Djibouti, we border with other Somalis. In Ethiopia, we border other Somalis. In Kenya, we border other Somalis. So people move without knowing. Climate change moves. People move without realizing that they are crossing into an international border. So this person who couldn't find grazing enough fodder for their animals in this village end up in another country without knowing. So it is also a transnational movement of animals and people. It increases the incidence of piracy in the Gulf of Aden due to economic desperation, and that obviously will further disrupt the international trade routes, who is not in the best shape. Global stability angle, terrorism and extremism. It's a catalyst for terrorism, with groups like Al-Shabaab and Islamic State gaining ground through recruitment of idle and hopeless youth throughout the climate crisis affecting in areas in Somalia and Somali-inhabited adjacent locations. Somali region of Ethiopia, Djibouti, Somali regions in Kenya and all. International trade, Gulf of Aden's importance for global trade, especially oil and gas, makes climate-induced instability in Somalia a global concern. With many humanitarian crises, obvious, I talked about it in El Nino and droughts coming together at the same time. Recommendations. International partners support for Somali government in climate resilience and security integration. Pay a commensurate attention to climate security and access in Somalia. Perhaps start with identifying the actors and making them together, synchronize them. Assign an NDA that is robust and responsive.
Thank you for those
one slide left.
Okay.
Yeah. And peace-building efforts to incorporate climate adaptation strategies and wider global action. Need for practical and synchronized international efforts to mitigate climate change impacts, including funding for quick, impactful research, localized adaptations, bankable education, focus on women, perhaps reinstate their ministry, employment opportunities, etc. In summary, the climate crisis in Somalia not only threatens its own stability, but surely also has far-reaching security implications globally due to its strategic location, Somalia's strategic location, and nature of modern conflicts. Our call to action, this small presentation, is enhanced international cooperation, smart investment in security practices, and conflict resolution strategies that consider climate change as a core component.
Thank you,
I don't
sir.
think you have questions. Thank you.